Hi, and welcome to today's Engaging for Missouri webinar. I'm Alice Roach from the Division of Applied Social Sciences at the University of Missouri, and I'll be your host today. With each of these 30-minute webinars, we intend to share research-based insights that leaders like you can apply in your own work to benefit and strengthen the state's agriculture and food system, hospitality sector, and communities. For today's webinar, Kevin Johansen will share about the AgButler platform. Before I invite him to begin, I want to share a few housekeeping notes. First, we'll close today's webinar with a question and answer session. Those of you who connected today via your computer can submit your questions in the chat screen. So to open the chat, just click the chat button that you see at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you joined by phone, then you can email me your questions at roacham@missouri.edu. Second, all attendees are muted and may not start their video. Third, if you encounter any technical problems during today's webinar, then you can let me know by either including the comment in the chat screen or sending me an email at roacham@missouri.edu, and I'll do my best to help you troubleshoot. Fourth, we will make a webinar recording available to you. You can look for an email from Zoom in about a day from now that shares more about where you can access that recording. We also have an archive of all of our previous Engaging for Missouri webinars on our division's YouTube page. So with that, we'll transition to the topic of today's webinar, which is titled AgButler, Enabling Farm Productivity One Click at a Time. Presenting today is Kevin Johansen, who is the AgButler Chief Executive Officer and founder. Thank you, Kevin, for presenting today. If you could please start your video and unmute your microphone, then we can begin today's presentation.
Hi, Alice. Thank you for having me. So with that, we'll get right into the AgButler platform. With that, it's been great to see the progress that we've made. We've been building AgButler for the last couple of months right now. So a little bit more about myself. I grew up on a seed stock Charolais operation in central Missouri. I'm a fifth generation farmer, and as you can see in the picture below, we have a couple of Missouri Century farms in my family, as well as my wife's family, Jamie, where we actually managed the farm day-to-day operations along with our daughter, Harper and Ivy. The AgButler team is consisted of a lot of agricultural experience. As you can see, my brother that serves as Chief Operating Officer, he has multiple years in marketing and outreach and brand strategist. Mark Allison is serving as our CFO. He has a vast knowledge in ag economics as well as ag production, where he comes from a farm over by Greenfield, Missouri, where they do row crop and beef cattle operation. And then our marketing and digital design group is Honey Creek Media, which consists of my wife and sister-in-law. My wife has a large background in ag communications and digital marketing, as well as my sister-in-law that is in design and graphics. So myself, what I bring to the table is basically building the grassroots network that I have in my professional career. And essentially, I am, the perfect example for this platform. During my whole adult career, I have worked in agriculture production as far as being hired, as well as hiring people for tasks and events throughout the calendar year. So with that, we'll start from the beginning. Our journey started in October of 2017, where it was basically an idea, and we kind of kicked around if this would actually be beneficial to the ag industry. We knew there was some other gig economy type of applications that work in other parts of society. We thought maybe this would benefit ag producers in the state of Missouri, as well as throughout the Midwest and potentially across the U.S. So with that, we established LLC, and you can see some of our other highlights through our soon-to-be 3-year stint with AgButler. Some of our main achievements was competing at Farm Bureau's Ag Innovation Challenge in Austin this past January, as well as Farm Credit Services America Ag Innovation Challenge that was held in Des Moines, Iowa. And then right now, we were privileged enough to earn a Mazda grant at the end of January, and we are currently going through the grant process, and we appreciate everything and the assistance from the Mazda group through that value added grant program. So let's start from the beginning. You know, I know most of you have some type of social media account. So we began noticing, and as you can see, this is mainly my Facebook feed. We also noticed in some Twitter feeds where producers were going to these social media sources to enlist, you know, part-time help to help with extra task, or to complete something that needed to be done in a timely manner to make their operation more efficient and more productive. So whenever we kept seeing this thread, and you know, every time I saw one of these pop up in my news feed, I would screenshot it so I could keep a track record of how many people were requesting part-time help. So we decided to ask some of our friends in the industry. So we kicked out a survey with some common questions that would help validate if we should proceed forward. So whenever we kicked out, the main one that we asked was, would you be willing to use this type of service that was available? And as you can see, we had about 82% that said maybe and yes. So that was a huge statistic that showed us, you know, we were onto something. And the other big statistic that showed, you know, 65% of our people focus more on reliability and trustworthiness was the most important aspect of a laborer that they would seek out to utilize on this on-demand farm labor app. And then to double check to make sure people were spending money on part-time labor, we asked the question, you know, how much do you spend per year? And an overwhelming response of, you know, 55% of the people that we surveyed said they spend up to $2,000 a year on part-time labor. And then, you know, almost 18% said they spent over $10,000 a year. So that was pretty, that showed us that people were using part-time labor, as well as, you know, putting a lot of their input cost in finding quality part-time labor. So as we were doing this grant application, as well as these contests, it was timely that the updated 2017 Ag Census data came out, which helped us update our numbers that we were initially worked off of the 2012. So what we did was kind of focus more on the less than 150-day worker, which was our part-time laborers. And as you can see, Missouri farms, there's 19,000 Missouri farms that use hired labor, or use hired labor, and over 50,000 laborers. So when we looked at it, as you can see, a large portion of those farms utilize part-time workers, and almost the majority of that labor force that's considered hired labor in Missouri is over half of those are part-time laborers. And then I just kind of wanted to look and see if the comparison to migrant labor in Missouri, there's not as many farms that use migrant labor, nor the number of laborers that are used as far as labor force on Missouri farms. So we felt like this was great data to use, especially for utilizing our projections as far as a budget goes. And just to give you a glimpse into some other states that surround us, you know, Kansas has 24,000 part-time laborers, Iowa has 47,000, Nebraska 24,000, Oklahoma had 28,000, and Texas has 85,000 part-time laborers, which, you know, Texas is quite a bit larger state, but seeing this data in Missouri and around Missouri was really beneficial for us. And with the current employment situation, we could probably see a drastic change in those numbers with people that have been furloughed or laid off during the COVID epidemic or pandemic. Um, some people might look at different options, more flexible careers down the path. So, with that and this data from the 2017 Ag Census and utilizing MU's extension portal to help us with the feasibility study of the MASBDA grant, it was also timely that Dr. Mark White was doing a workforce and development program research to where we could add some of that data into our feasibility study. So since February, the attendees to this webinar is going to get kind of a first look at the platform being built. So I'm going to kind of show you how it works and give you some snapshots into the app itself. So as you can see on your left, we'll have a job listing based out by industry. And this is for the laborer that can see new jobs that are posted in their industries that they selected and their specifications, be it livestock and cattle or crops. And I know what you see there, it says crops and cattle, but that's just generated so we could test out the data. So that's just shows kind of the screenshots, but laborers can see the new jobs that are in their area, as well as keep a running list of jobs that they applied for and that they have accepted or declined. So it just kind of helps keep them organized in the jobs that have come available or what they're looking to proceed. And you can see the per hour rate. We have it built into where the laborer can set a rate that they're looking at getting paid, and the employer, you'll see here soon that they can set the rate that they're looking to pay. So it's all out on the table of where people are at, what they're looking to get paid, and how much they're willing to pay for labor on their operations. This next slide is the map functionality, which is going to be very beneficial for laborers to view what jobs are available, and if they want to go out to a further radius from their location, they can see what jobs are available. So we've always talked about a lot of us use part-time laborers in a small radius to our operation, 5 to 10 miles, because we know a lot of those people. But if we always make the point, if you look to 15 to 20 mile radius from your location, just imagine the additional possibilities of experienced high quality laborers that you could tap into. And the whole purpose of this is to make operations more efficient and effective of what they're trying to accomplish. So this allows the laborer to kind of look and see the location and how far away, and be able to see how many jobs are within a certain mile radius via map style or in the list version. So we'll switch over to the employer side. The employer has a couple options. They can search for laborers just like a regular search. There's a filter tab up here to where you can figure out, I need to look for somebody that's into cattle and a certain hourly wage or dollar range, and the radius to where they're located. And then that list will pop up of potential laborers with those specifications. Or so you can search it that way, or you can just post your jobs on a complete list, and then that allows laborers to search from their side of the app and pick and choose to where they can they can decide what jobs they want to look at. Down here, the employer has the option of offering a job or confirming accepting a job request from a laborer, and it you can have all these specifications that you can put in the job work period and the description down here in the bottom. So a lot of information is out in front for both parties to be able to process and see what they're wanting to do. So at the beginning of the year, we started, you know, so we were working on our application, our platform, and through our grant process, we were working on outreach programs. So we utilized some of the early 2020 commodity events. We attended Missouri Cattlemen's Convention and the Missouri Young Farmers and Ranchers Convention. And then, of course, we all know that the COVID pandemic kind of hit to where it reduced our availability to go and meet with producers and young agriculturalists alike at certain county meetings or other events that were coming up throughout the spring. So prior to that, we had set up what we call our first service sign up, and it allows producers that are interested and or people that are interested to be on the hiring for hire side to sign up and be on a list of to stay up to date on what we're doing and how we are progressing through our platform. So if anybody is on here that's as a part of the first service sign up, we have been doing our best to keep them updated bi-weekly or monthly on the progress, and that's what we kind of advertise it as is if they sign up for first service, they'll get almost all access and up to date events that we are going to, or the progress of the app, or where you might find us. So I think it was last week I sent an email out to all of our first service people that we'd be on this webinar. And with our first service, we were able to get some additional information from our first service signees. And what was interesting is they were able to click on multiple industries that they were a part of, but the first service group, 90% of them are associated with livestock, 57% were associated with crops, and 44% with transportation. And you would see back the slide on our job list that we had construction, and we just added construction here in the last 30 to 45 days because we felt like it would be a good option for construction contractors or producers that do some construction on the side, because it's not always easy to find somebody to do some construction work if you're in a rural area, unless you know somebody right offhand. I mean, it took me 30 days to find somebody to be able to pour us a concrete pad for our daughter's show pigs. So if we had this application, I would have been able to put that job out there and probably found somebody a little bit sooner. So we felt it was a good need to add construction. So that's why construction is not part of our first service form, but we will probably soon be adding that. And the other interesting data that we got was we asked a question, were you interested in for hire, hiring, or both? And really that kind of split up into thirds. So each category was at about 30 to 35% response rate on that. And, you know, we've been talking about our response to COVID, and with our involvement with the AFBF contest challenge and being at the Missouri Young Farmers and Ranchers conference back in February, when this started to spread and really start affecting Missouri, some board members for the Missouri Farm Bureau had reached out to the home office and was asking if there's a way that they could set up um, an avenue for students that were sent home from college and high school that still would like to get some hands-on experience. And if the COVID pandemic really hit rural Missouri hard, a way to continue spring planting, spring cattle work and spring hay prep, how we could do that. And so they reached out to us to see if how far along our app was. And I said, well, we just got started constructing it, but I have some tools that we can put together to make a quote unquote job board a little bit hands off and more digital and to facilitate that. So we worked the last part of March and first part of April when we launched the MOAG Connection. So it was our Rush pilot job board, or a Rush job board pilot, excuse me. And we set it up for a temporary service to where students that were your non-traditional ag students that would like more hands-on experience on farms and ranches in Missouri. And if there were some producers that needed some extra help to get their spring tasks done, that were willing to hire some young agriculturalists. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, we had some good response on either side and we made some connections. But as we all know, in the rural Missouri, this didn't affect us as harsh as we originally thought. So we knew it was kind of going to be a feast or famine, but it was adequate and gave us enough response to know that people would be willing to utilize a service of this type, and students were eager to see what jobs were available. We did have some inquiries from people that were not students and asked, why just students? And we wanted to keep the students availability of their education that they were there to train. And like I said, more so for the non-traditional ag students that didn't have a farm or ranch to go back to, that caught the agricultural production bug via their FA or 4-H chapters, or as they got into their colleges or universities and wanted to continue a way to be a part of agriculture. So essentially what we're looking at doing is trying to make the ideal connection. And we're trying to make it to where young agriculturalists that are wanting to be involved in agriculture, especially production agriculture, can get connected with our older demographic that has the experience and sometimes needs additional help in a short timely manner. So my father's a perfect example. He's 70 years old and we live about an hour and 45 minutes away. And sometimes he needs a quick, easy task, maybe tagging calves or giving calves the first round of shots during the middle of the week. And I can't get there. And this would be a perfect platform to make that connection with somebody within a 20-mile radius that wants to get extra experience on a beef cattle operation and management. So that's where we're looking at as far as bridging that gap and experience through this, as well as providing some additional income for rural communities as we proceed. So at this point, we want to kind of give a shout out to our advisors that have been our support system from the beginning. These individual organizations and institutions kind of gave us a boost of confidence to give us to push forward. So, University of Missouri and Missouri State, with both prominent ag colleges, to where we can utilize and get students extra experience in and around those communities that those institutions are placed. And of course, we've already mentioned Missouri Farm Bureau and Missouri Cattlemen's. Missouri Cattlemen's actually added our MOAG connection to their COVID dedicated page on their website. And then the American Charlie Association, they were a part of it as well. And one of the other drivers that have helped us through the grant process and some of our added tools for outreach is the National Center for Beef Excellence. They've been great advisors to work with the last 2 years and has helped us get to the point where we are as far as collaborating on work plans and an avenue to go to. So with that, that is AgButler in a quick nutshell, enabling farm productivity one click at a time. And Alice, I'll kick it back over to you for any questions that we might have.
Excellent, Kevin. If you do have a question, we have time for just a few. You can submit them again in the chat screen, or you can email them to me at roacham@missouri.edu. Kevin, I have a question for you about if you could skip back to your survey results slide. Could you tell us a little more about the demographics of the people who responded to the survey or the research that you conducted in terms of what types of operations did they have and where were they located?
Yeah, so we sent this out to our network of friends and some family in the industry. And it was interesting to look back and see, a large portion of them were beef cattle operations, but we also had crop producers as well. So I mean, generally those kind of go hand in hand, crop producers and beef cattle. But we really invited some of our people that were strictly crop producers and strictly just production to ask these questions. And we had a few people that were part of the transportation sector as well.
Great. And then according to your research with employers, what are the characteristics of the operations that have the greatest part-time labor expense? So in other words, who are the 18% of operations that spend more than $10,000 annually on part-time labor?
Well, those seem to have been more of the larger operations that had, larger production daily task. So they had their main management source, but then they also relied a lot on part-time laborers during their peak time. So on the production side, if they were weaning cattle or setting up cattle to breed for the breeding season, they would add additional laborers, and also some of the larger crop production operations that needed extra grain cart drivers or grain truck haulers, things of that nature.
Great, thank you. We have a question here about cost. How much would it cost for a producer to be involved or for a laborer to have a profile in the app?
So right now, to be on the app for the employer or the laborer is free, and really all we are the only cost that is going to be transacted at this point is a connection fee for the employer. So if an employer gets connected with a laborer to do a job, it's just going to be a flat connection fee. We're looking at $20 right now for the connection fee. And so that's the only cost that we have right now.
Okay, great. Another question here, does the app provide a section for certification? So for instance, if someone has a pesticide certification, is there a place in the app to note that?
So what I showed initially is our version 1. So we are setting up a version of this app to get out and beta test, and that would definitely be one area that we can add to that to build into the profiles for laborers or anything that the employer is looking for. That's something that we have definitely looked into adding into there. So with those certifications, we're also looking at down the road having a tiered connection fee depending on the complexity of the task that they're looking for.
Sure, great. Well, it's time to close today's webinar. Thank you again, Kevin, for sharing today's presentation, and thank you to our audience too. When you exit Zoom, you'll see a post-webinar survey will load in your browser. If you could please consider responding, we'll use the results to improve the webinar experience and also brainstorm future webinar topics. Again, you should receive an email from Zoom in about a day from now that shares more about where you can access the recording. Our next Engaging for Missouri webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, June 3rd, as the Missouri Agricultural and Small Business Development Authority will present financial assistance options for Missouri farms and rural businesses. So thanks again for joining us and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.